Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new series on the channel called the SNES Final Level. This is a series where I will be trying to complete as many Super Nintendo games as possible. Now, the name does not mean only the last level, it's just a name that I've given it, meaning that I'm trying to get to the last level and beat the game. I started this project a few years ago due to real personal life stuff. Been moving at a pretty slow pace. However, I have completed as of right now a little over 40 games, and here in the near future, starting with this video, we are going to be ranking every 10 to 15 games that I complete. Right now, I'm going to start off with 10, but later on in the series, I might bump it up to 15 games, but we're going to rank them from S to F, S being the best, F being the worst. Obviously, these are my own personal opinions, so if you have a different opinion, feel free to leave a comment, let me know. Let's get some discussion going on about it, but just after playing through each game, growing up with some of them, I do hold some of them a little bit more dear to my heart. However, I would love to hear you guys' feedback. Now, on to our first tier ranking. The first game we'll be ranking is the ever-popular Super Mario World, and this game is S tier. It's S tier. There is nothing else I can really say about this that you guys probably already don't know about. You can go back on my channel, you can see videos of how I'm showing you how to get all the secret exits, all kinds of different tips and tricks. This game is the game that started it for so many people in the Super Nintendo world. And I went with this game right off the bat. You know, this game is iconic. Everybody knows Super Mario World. My mom played Super Mario World. My mom does not play video games. She played Super Mario World. I don't think I really have to go into this, why this game is S tier. It is a bona fide S tier, I think, just by everybody. Next on our list is another S tier game in Donkey Kong Country. This is a fantastic platformer, great graphics, amazing music, fantastic controls, just a fun platformer. Anybody can jump in and play this game. I mean, it progressively gets harder, but the challenge is there, the fun is there. We played this game so many times as a kid. I got it for Christmas from my dad. Holds a very special place in my heart for nostalgia-wise. And it also started off the whole Donkey Kong Country series. We know we got Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo, and those will be coming a little bit later in this video. But this game overall, just a fun game. Honestly, I think the creativity in the levels was, it was up there. Some people might put this in an A tier, but for me, because of where it stands in my personal life, this is S tier. Next on our list is Addams Family Values. This is basically Fester's Quest for the original Nintendo on crack. This is a very difficult game. This took me a little over 11 hours to complete. It's very Zelda-esque, as in you can explore everywhere, you can collect different items, but it really doesn't hold your hand at all. It's a lot of roaming around, trying to figure out what you gotta do. The mechanic for shooting the lightning bolt out of Fester's hand, the more damage you take, the weaker that shot becomes, which makes the later game much more difficult with some of those bosses. Overall, it wasn't a terrible game, but also it's not a game I'll probably go back to. I did enjoy playing it, but this is more of a meh to me. Our next game is our first A tier ranking, and it is also our first RPG for this challenge in Breath of Fire. Now, Breath of Fire was actually my second RPG that I ever played, Super Mario RPG being the first one, and I really fell in love with RPGs after playing Super Mario RPG, and my friend had the game Breath of Fire, let me borrow it, and I loved it. The game itself is simple for an RPG. It kind of holds your hand. The leveling up is fairly easy and straightforward. You really don't have to grind a whole lot as you go throughout the game. Your characters do progress with the enemies. It's got a basic story as far as, it's light versus dark, good versus evil. But overall, lots of cool bosses, lots of hidden items and gear. I really enjoyed this game. This also holds a special place in my heart because it was one of my first RPGs. But really, this is a game that I've gone back to several times over the years, and I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, this is A tier for me. Alright, next up on our list is kind of a controversial one, I think, and that is The Lion King. And this here is B tier. Now, I know some people would probably immediately put this in D tier or F tier because this is a difficult game. This is probably the hardest Disney game on the Super Nintendo, at least the one that I've played so far. The Lion King, yes, it's known for its insane difficulty after level 1. We all know it was for rental purposes so that people keep renting the game, trying to beat it. But that has to be one of the most ridiculous difficulty spikes ever from a level 1 to level 2. But you get past the difficulty part of it, like if you look past that, the platforming is actually really good. It does have fun levels. It's not a bad game. I get why it gets the hate that it does, but the game itself is not terrible. It can be fun once you've mastered some of these levels, which I know that sounds ridiculous, but once you've mastered some of these levels, it can be a fun game. I actually did enjoy playing this as a kid, even though I had a tough time trying to pass level 2 and level 3, but overall, not a terrible game. This is B tier for me. Up next is Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, and this is another S tier. To me, this game is better than the original Donkey Kong. The original Donkey Kong, great game, I love it. It is S tier for me because there's nostalgia behind it. I love that game, but Diddy's Kong Quest is where it's at for me. I think the levels are better designed. I think the creativity is there. The fact that you can turn into the animals just gives it a little bit more of an edge to me with those levels. They get more difficult. Obviously, that's how most games are. But I mean, this game really ramps it up towards the end, like Toxic Tower and some of those levels. So much fun. I loved this game as a kid. I remember renting this, and I sat in front of the TV for 8.5 hours straight and played this game until I beat it. This is such a fun game. This is the best Donkey Kong Country game out there. Fight me, I don't care. This is S tier. Next up is probably my favorite Disney game on the Super Nintendo, and that is Goof Troop, and this is A tier for me. This is a fantastic co-op game. If you've never played this game before, it's basically a co-op game. Well, you can play it single player as well, but it's more fun with co-op. What you're doing is solving these puzzles to advance throughout the level. There are fighting elements and like action elements to the game, but a lot of it is just using your noggin and getting through these really cool little puzzles. Overall, it's really fun. It has some catchy music. It's short. It's not difficult. It's just a fun sit down and play game. So that is why this gets A tier for me. Next on our list is Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie's Double Trouble, and this is A tier for me. Now, I know those are probably fighting words for some of you guys because some people love this game more than they love Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2. While I do think this game is a better game than Donkey Kong Country 1, it doesn't hold that kind of nostalgia for me. I do enjoy playing this, but this is not a game that I go back to. I do remember that this is my personal opinion. I like this game. I really do. I think the levels are fun. I think the music is great. But overall, this game kind of fell flat for me because it didn't really do a whole lot to improve on Donkey Kong Country 2 for me. Donkey Kong Country 2 was peak, and I was really expecting Donkey Kong Country 3 to push it a little bit more. There are some different elements and some different new gimmicks to this game, yes, but it wasn't enough to push it over the top for me where I wanted to keep going back to it. I found myself going back to the first two way more. This game is fun, but to me, this is just A tier. Alright, next up on our controversial list is Kirby Superstar, and this again is A tier for me. I know. People are going to kill me for this, but hear me out. Reason why I put this in A tier. This is a fantastic game. This is the best Kirby game on the Super Nintendo by far. It's not even close. I know the other Kirby games are fun. This is by far, this blows them out of the water. This is why it is an A tier and not S tier for me. Not everything in this game is fun. While this is a compilation of 8 games in one, 8 is really carrying a lot of weight here because 2 of them really are mini games, and while they are technically games, they're not. To me, it brings down the score just a little bit because they're not really that fun. The King DDD race and the samurai competition thing, those aren't really that fun. They're okay, but they bring down the score a little bit. Spring Breeze also is just kind of like a remaster of the Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy. It's okay. It's not great. It's okay. It's real mid, really. And then you have Dyna Blade. Dyna Blade is fun. It's a little bit better than Spring Breeze, but again, not something that I'm gonna keep playing Kirby Superstar for. Where the game shines is in the Treasure Hunt game, the Revenge of Meta Knight, and then the Milky Way Galaxy game. Those games are like S tier. I think Revenge of Meta Knight is like S++ tier. Like, I love that game. That is got some of the most awesome music. I thought the story was cool. I thought the ending of it was really cool with like the silhouettes and everything. I don't know. That was a fun game. This game is still a blast. The gauntlet at the end is still fun. This is A tier for me. I know people are going to hate on me. Just a couple of the games that are in there do bring this score down a little bit, but still highly, highly recommend picking this one up and playing the crap out of it. And the last game on our list is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And this game to me is not just S tier, it is S+. Now, in full transparency, this is the game I started this whole challenge off with. This was game number 1. But because I was putting it in a new tier, I wanted to leave it to last to rank. Now, this game is the one that made me fall in love with Zelda. As I think many will probably say the same, this game is usually considered the best game on the Super Nintendo, and there's a good reason. That is not, overrated or anything like this. That is just how good this game is. I remember going to my cousin's house, and he was playing this game. It's the first time I ever saw this game. He was at a dark world. He had just gotten to the Dark Palace. He made it all the way up to Helmasaur. Like, I fell in love with this game. We immediately went out and rented it. So much fun. I cannot even tell you how many hours I have poured into this game, especially when I was a kid. Nowadays, not difficult, of course, for me, because I've beaten it God knows how many times, but I love this game. This is, in my opinion, probably the only S+ tier game in the Super Nintendo library. While others might say Chrono Trigger and Earthbound, but no, for me, this is my quintessential SNES game that everybody needs to own and everybody needs to play. So yes, this full-heartedly deserves S+ tier for me. Alright, so that wraps up our first ranking of the SNES final level, games 1 through 10. I hope you all really enjoyed this. There will be more tier ranking videos in the future, as I do have more games that I need to get ranked. It's just a matter of me being able to get time to do that. But I hope you all really enjoyed this. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all the normal YouTube stuff. Until next time, thank you guys.